Hello everybody, my name is Matt and I'm a campaigner with the Yorkshire Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. So in welcoming you all here today, I'd like to acknowledge firstly what a strange thing it is to be doing an event like this online. So please do bear with us through the likely upcoming technical difficulties. But I would like, with that in mind, to share this image with you of last year's Hiroshima Day event. And I think it really encapsulates what's so important about this remembrance, is that it brings together all of the diverse communities of Bradford in remembering. And I think that's particularly important because the struggle for peace and justice can oftentimes be a lonely road, which is why it's so important that we're able to gather together and to show solidarity with one another. And that makes it doubly sad that we're not able to do that today. So I'd just like to say that I hope that that you all and your families are all doing well at this difficult time, and that I hope that we can all meet again together soon. So while today is about remembering some of the darkest days in human history, for me today is about hope and about resilience. Three nations used the anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima on Thursday to sign the United Nations Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. And we know that a fourth country will be ratifying that treaty tomorrow to mark the anniversary of the bombing of Nagasaki. And what makes that particularly important is that it means we only need 6 further nations to ratify before that treaty enters international law. And I cannot think of a more fitting tribute, not only to those who died, but to the survivors who've spent many decades campaigning for the abolition of these monstrous weapons. So without further ado, or hopefully minimal further ado, I would like to play this message from our Lord Mayor Cllr Doreen Lee.
Hello everybody, I'm Cllr Doreen Lee, the Lord Mayor of Bradford, and it is my privilege to join you today to mark the very significant and tragic anniversary. We join countless people across the world remembering one of the starkest days in human history. On the 6th of August 1945, an atomic bomb was dropped on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. Over 70,000 people died in the horrific blast, and the radioactive black rain continued to fall and devastate the city and its disfigured inhabitants and the dead. 3 days later, a second bomb was dropped on the city of Nagasaki, and a further 40,000 people died. Aside from the dead, many were left dreadfully injured. Radiation sickness and terrible burns affected thousands. The black rain, which continued to fall, was a toxic mixture of fallout particles, carbon residue from the citywide fires, and other life-endangering elements. It was inhaled, it fell on people's skin and clothing, it contaminated food, even the water source, of which many of the blast victims longed for. Widespread radiation poisoning was to claim the lives of many in the future years. The statistics are shocking enough, but spending time listening to the survivors tell their story reveals the real human tragedy behind those numbers. Many survivors say that the ability to share their experience has given some meaning to what they lived through. We must not squander the ability to learn from these lessons of the past. 75 years on, we stop and we reflect on the many lives lost and ruined in those devastating attacks. It is vitally important that we never forget the horror of these bombings and their aftermath. It should not fade from our memory, even though those who live through it are dwindling in number. Their experience, the pain caused to the victims and the survivors, must live on through us. In no other area of life is learning the lesson of human nature more important when they are concerned conflict and war. We must continue to strive and imagine a better and a different future. And we can only do this together, and that's why it's important to gather and to collectively remember as we are doing today. Thank you.
So next we have a poem that's been composed especially for today, which is something which is quite a rarity for us and certainly very, very special. So we would like to thank Bradford poet Sharena Lee Satti for this wonderful poem that she reads for us today.
We remember. We remember busy filled streets with overflowing lantern lights that left a colourful flicker, gently swaying in the night. The lantern lights formed aisles of arches, resting under wooden huts and heavy masonry infrastructure. Hiroshima was known for its popular culture, for its serene landscapes, sculptured by the hands of its people, with mountains just visible, hiding amongst the clouds, and trees resting upon hills, with still lakes and boats still tied at the docks. People's shops were carrying flowers in baskets on their backs. These people had no shelter from this nuclear attack. No building could protect them. No human could shield them. Powerless to condemn the nuclear destruction, a cowardless life reduction, killing 90% of its population. The act to end war ended up killing a whole nation. War has never been a solution to a positive outcome, leaving empty hollow buildings and open wounds numb. It's a disease that leaves soulless cities and piles of stone and debris, leaving lands infertile and lifeless naked branch trees, with fire that breathes nuclear radiation. No escape from the mass annihilation. Let's remember the busy filled streets and the serene landscapes of peace, the smiles of every life lost at the hands of this immoral, inhumane Holocaust. Let's be the bridge to humanity and the lanterns of light, standing for peace. Let's learn from the wrongs of the past and be the voice for what's right. Let's stand for global peace and never allow anyone again to release the destruction of nuclear weapons.
So I'd like to thank Sharena in particular for that, because I've found it particularly moving, and I think it's that we can mark a day like today with such creativity is something to be cherished. So next, I'm very pleased to be able to introduce the Bishop of Bradford, Toby Howarth, who recorded this message for us earlier today.
Many of us who saw the footage of the horrific explosion this past Tuesday in Beirut will have thought of the echoes of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The mushroom cloud, the catastrophic and indiscriminate death and destruction, lives lost, hospitals overwhelmed, properties and business ruined, and the environment polluted. Of course, what we saw in Beirut, as horrific as it was, is hardly comparable to the destruction that would be wrought by a modern nuclear bomb. But it does remind us of what is at stake when we gather today, even if we do so online. For many years, the work of CND, at least from my perspective, seems to have been quite a lonely one. The threat of terrorism overshadowed what seemed to many to have become an outdated focus on nuclear weapons. There was an assumption that the Cold War had ended, and with it the danger of nuclear war. But that confidence seems now to have been seriously misplaced. We are witnessing arms control agreements lapse without being renewed, and we are seeing new generations of nuclear weapons being developed, including those which are harder to monitor and control. Any sense of the largest world powers wanting to work together on the world's problems has been shown to be hollow, as populist and totalitarian world leaders blame each other's countries for the coronavirus. With trade wars and slanging matches between the US, China and Russia, there isn't a great hope for coming together around a new framework for nuclear non-proliferation. At the same time, the list of countries with nuclear weapons gets longer, and the agreement with Iran that was working has been unilaterally ditched by Washington, while North Korea gets ever closer to having nuclear capability if it hasn't already. Our pandemic has shown us, both within nation states and internationally, that looking after one another, and particularly looking after the weakest among us, is critical to the health of all of us. Our world is finally beginning to wake up to the climate catastrophe that we are walking into. So the case for nuclear disarmament, seen in the light of both of these realities, is becoming stronger and stronger. Pope Francis, when he visited Hiroshima and Nagasaki last November, spoke of the deepest longings of the human heart for security, for peace and for stability. And he challenged the assumption that our world has worked with us, the assumption that our world has worked with for so long, that we can build this peace and international stability on the foundation of a fear of mutually assured destruction. International peace is built on trust, on solidarity and mutual self-interest, promoted by leaders who act with integrity and wisdom, and who are held to account by ordinary people like you and me. But I come back to those images from Beirut, reminding us of what happened on a far greater scale in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which we remember today, and which pale in comparison with what today's nuclear bombs can destroy. This is about people. This is about a choice between spending our money on schools and hospitals and care homes, or on weapons that can indiscriminately kill and maim and destroy. As Pope Francis prayed the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, standing at that memorial in Nagasaki, God, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there's hatred, let me sow love. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there's doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Where there's darkness, light. And where there's sadness, joy.
Many thanks to Bishop Toby for his support and for his wise words. So we have one final speaker, which is Shannon Johnson from Bradford's Peace Museum, who we're very pleased was able to record this message for us.
Hi, I'm Shannon Johnson and I'm the Learning and Engagement Officer at the Peace Museum in Bradford. Today marks the 75th anniversary of the bombing of Nagasaki in Japan at the end of the Second World War. Today is a reminder that 75 years on, the world has still not done enough to rid it of nuclear weapons. We all still need to work together to encourage countries to sign the nuclear test ban and to ensure that nuclear weapons are never made or never used again. In the context of the ongoing coronavirus crisis, it's another reminder that we need to work together to rid the world of warfare and militarism, and instead focus on healthcare and ensuring that pandemics such as this don't happen again in the future. At the Peace Museum, we're launching an online digital exhibition called Peace and Pandemic, which is going to explore how people have coped during lockdown, how people have come together and felt a community spirit and really worked together to try and make the time a little bit easier, especially for vulnerable people. But a section is also going to look at our collection and make comparisons between the fight against nuclear weapons by anti-nuclear weapons campaigners and compare that to the way that we need to work together today to ensure that the virus can be beaten. Another section is going to look at peaceful protests in lockdown and how people have managed to, from home, either stood in solidarity or peacefully protested and campaigned for the things that they care about, including against nuclear weapons, as well as the climate crisis, Black Lives Matter, and even celebrating virtual pride at home. Have a look on our website in a few weeks to have a look at this new exhibition. Also, this weekend, we should have been launching a new phase of an exhibition called Bombs Away, which was going to explore the impact of civilian bombing during World War II, both conventional bombs and the nuclear bombs that were dropped on Japan. Because of the coronavirus crisis, we haven't been able to open this exhibition, but we hope we can either later in the year or next year. We're sorry that we can't be there today in person to mark this really important day, 75 years on, but we want to send a message of peace to everybody watching and a reminder that we all need to work together to rid the world of nuclear weapons once and for all. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Shannon, and we also hope to be back with you soon also. So this would normally be the point in proceedings where we would lay the wreath on the Hiroshima Memorial in Norfolk Gardens. We're not able to do that live, obviously, this year. So, but we did visit with a small group of Bradford campaigners on the anniversary of Hiroshima itself, and take this short recording. So the wreath itself is made using paper cranes that were made by children from Hiroshima. So it just remains for me to say thank you to all of our speakers today. We're particularly grateful in that due to the last minute changes around our ability to do this event live, it meant that people have had to put together videos very quickly. So we really do appreciate that. I'd like to thank all of you for attending, and I'm going to play out with a video that was made for us a couple of weeks ago by Stephen Garnett and his son Jamie, local Bradford filmmakers, about an event that we did in Bradford Centenary Square to mark the 75th anniversary of the Trinity test, which was on the 16th of July. So many thanks. Goodbye.
That's 59, Mike. From the last one.
Go.
So then we are...
Jonas, do you want to tell us what's about to happen here today?
Yeah, so 75 people are going to gather here in the square, socially distanced. It's a demonstration. They're going to form the historic CND peace symbol. The reason that's happening is because today is the 75th anniversary of the first Trinity test, so that's the first nuclear test that happened 75 years ago, and today is a protest marking that horrible event and marking the 75 years of nuclear destruction that have happened since.
Hiya, could you just tell us your name and why you feel it's important to be here today?
Yeah, hi, my name's Sarah, and I'm here primarily because it's a big symbolic event. It's a celebration of our campaigning and activism in Bradford, but also as a parent, I've got one of my children here with me. You know, the last few months have shown above anything that our public spending and our national focus has got to be on building a sustainable future. And you know, us coming together today, despite everything that everything's been through in the past few months, is really showing that people want a different future and a different course of investment for our families.
My name is Mukhtar Ali. It's important for me to be able to demonstrate to the world that the nuclear bombs are not the answer. In this pandemic, the amount of money that we have spent on the nuclear bombs, and we will be spending in the nuclear bombs, if we spent half of that money on the whole of the world health services, people would not be dying at the rate that they are dying.
Would you mind saying why you're here, just on the camera?
I'm a Bradfordian. I've been in Bradford most of my life. Peace and justice is very important to me. I feel that it is the injustice globally that needs to be addressed.
I'm a ward councillor for Tongue Ward. I think it's really important to come here to show all the people in the world who've suffered because of nuclear weapons solidarity, and try and fight towards a future where nobody else will be affected by them.
My name's Rob Martin. I think it's important in a lot of ways for the amount of money that we spend on arms.
We cannot stand neutral on issues like this. This is a deeply and profoundly moral issue for all of us. And we cannot remove ourselves from the difficult moral questions of, well, what do you do about this? And so I'm here because actually we have to come together and say, this is our common issue.
Thank you. I'm going to leave it there because that was absolutely perfect.